Outer Orange.
Привет! Hello and welcome back to my channel, OuterOrange here today. And today we are discussing Highlander Premium. I just came back from BSF and this is the deck I took and I really wanted to talk to you guys about it today. There's kind of a lot to talk about, so this might be a little bit of a long video. I am going to make an in-depth analysis here of pretty much all the testing I've done with this deck. Is sort of what led me to want to take it over like a deck like Grand Blue, which is the deck I pretty much always take when I enter premium events because I just am a chicken and I just never feel comfortable taking anything. And actually this is the first time that I've ever competed with a Bermuda Triangle deck in premium, like ever. Like I never ever thought I'd be taking Bermuda Triangle to premium, but here we are. I did end up taking it, but we're going to talk about it. There's quite a bit to discuss, so we're kind of going to break it down. I'm going to tell you guys pretty much all the testing I've done throughout, like explain pretty much all the cards, why I took them, why I took some cards out, and all that kind of fun stuff. There's kind of a good bit to talk about, so I'm going to try and break it down to the best of my abilities. Big shout outs to the people that tested with me. I also had some last minute testing with the Taurus and Gurgitson, so I want to thank them so much for spending the time with me to kind of test a little bit more. Of course, to my teammates who I tested with as well, they came over my house and we did a lot of testing. And also I overall did actually pretty well as a standalone person. However, it was a team event, so like as a team we actually flopped pretty hard because both my teammate friend and my Lava's friend were struggling a lot during the last rounds. We were fine like early on, in the last rounds they really started struggling. A lot of RNG kind of started getting thrown around. I will say I think both of them played really well, and massive props to both of them. I think they did excellent, especially our teammate player. I think he played to his heart, and it's actually very sad that a lot of times I hate to say it, but a lot of times OT actually shut down his turns. And while like it's like, yeah, it could happen, but it was like situations where there's nothing else he could have done, so it's just very unfortunate. But anyway, so I got this deck box here recently. I recently made a video on it, so this is the deck box that I used and the deck box that I took to pretty much Springfest, and it was great. I had both my decks for both days in here and definitely did me justice. I had this entire thing completely full. This was with markers and the G-Zone, and this was with the deck, and then I had my little tokens and my little good luck charms. So I had this box was full. For sleeves, I have the Miri sleeves right now, and then for over sleeves for the G-Zone, I actually have these. This is the quintuples. This is Miku. She's one of my favorite characters, and I was using this for my G-Zone. Also, I forgot to mention this. I'm actually the one that revealed this card, so it's actually kind of funny that I'm finally making a profile on it, because I actually haven't, because I've been playing Grand Blue. So, but anyway, so I'm the one that revealed this, so it's actually very excited if I make an entire profile of this. But anyway, aside from that, yeah, this is Miku from the quintuplets series, and yeah, I just got these. I just think they're really cool. So that's that. So this is the beginning. I'm gonna start with Velvet Rose Reindeer and just kind of go to all the other cards as I go. So first of all, before I say anything, this is actually one of my favorite Bermuda Triangle cards. Not this card in specific, just this mermaid. I actually really love this card, both in the old versions and this version, whatever versions. I was actually very excited when this card got originally revealed, and then I didn't really touch this deck as much as I wanted to, even though I was super psyched to touch it at some point. So funnily enough, that it's kind of funny that I finally got her out to it. But anyway, it took me like what, 3 years. Anyway, so this is Velvet Voice Reindeer. So she has a couple skills. This is very important. This is definitely like the meat and bones of the deck. Aside from everything else, this is the reason why the deck even works. Like if it wasn't for this card, like this deck would be nowhere near as powerful as it is. But pretty much it says while revealing card effect, she's regarded as a trigger over a normal unit. So pretty much what happens here is that she just goes around all the weird conditions of like your deck has to have like set amount of normal units. This is a Highlander deck if it's not obvious, so you want to have a bunch of one-ofs. You don't want to whiff as much, so she goes around that. So pretty much you just don't whiff any of a lot of the card effects that people would be seeing here. And then that's just that. She just doesn't whiff your condition as much. So that's pretty cool. And then she has a secondary effect. She says at the end of the battle it attacked, you can discard 2 cards like a top 10 and then ride anything from the top 10. And then at the end of the battle, at the end of the turn, you can pretty much ride back down into a grade 3, or you can ride back into a grade 3, or if you don't have a grade 3, you can ride back into a 2, which is a lot of the reason why this deck is really good right now. But essentially, if you do choose to go to normal route, you can pretty much ride back into her, and then you get a force marker. So essentially, you'll always go back to her. And ideally, what you could do is you could just keep looping this over and over again. And then there's some cards in here that have like multiple Vanguard swings, and then you have a Heltruda on top of that, which is also just an extending into this, which adds even more flavor and just greatness of the deck, and it just gets more powerful and powerful as the game goes. And this deck has insanely good late game scaling, and it just pops off like crazy. So that's pretty much the condition. So why like even run her as the main boss unit? She pretty much lets you be able to first of all, get a bunch of force markers, which is insane. She lets you ride into multiple vanguards who also have effects, which is also insane. And on top of that, you can choose to ride back down to a grade 2, denying your opponent the ability to stride, which is what this is. And what happens is that they pretty much have to play V instead of playing premium. If their deck really sucks, or if they can't deal with not being able to stride, they kind of lose. A lot of decks win on stride, so if you just deny them striding, they just can't win. And that's kind of what makes this deck so strong, and what pretty much is the wall right now of why other decks can't keep up. This deck is just faster and just better in almost every way. Has a bunch of like bricky situations, of course. This deck is a Highlander deck, so there's a bunch of 1-ofs in here, so of course there's gonna be situations where the deck bricks, but it doesn't change the fact that the deck has an insanely high ceiling. It's very strong. Let's go ahead and talk about what ride targets you would want to have with Reindeer. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna start with the grade 4s and then go into the 3s and all that kind of fun stuff. So there's some obvious ones. There's like Lura. So Lura pretty much says on play, so you reveal top 10, and then out of those top 10, you pretty much call any cards out. So this is a deck thinner on top of just like randomly finding you cards that are useful. Also, the cards that you call out get 10k power, so it's actually kind of insane. If you're like on strike turns, you can even call out the crit triggers, the ones that go into soul and draw you cards. There's just all this like weird stuff you can do. It's actually pretty nuts. This card is like a super high roll, like oh my god, like you're gonna die type of card. There was one time where I got double processor off of this, and it was pretty much just game over. It only happened once, but you just never know. But yeah, this card is pretty insane. Honestly, all the grade 4s are pretty insane, to be real with you. Like, you really probably should be playing almost all of them. They're all good in their own way. You really want, there's some situations where you just don't have a board or your whole hand is triggers. This is like one of the best cards to see in your top 10 if you see it. I actually see this card a lot more than I want to sometimes, but this card really likes me. So, but this is definitely a card where you want to, like, usually, I'm going to mention this now. Sometimes you want something with Vanguard, and sometimes you want something with your rear guards first. This is definitely a card where you want something with rear guards first. So, and then you want to swing with Reindeer, and then use Reindeer's effect to find this, and then she'll replenish you a board, right? So that's kind of what you want to do there. Or if you don't have a board, like I said, just swing with Vanguard anyway, and then I call it the spray and pray move. I just swing with Vanguard, and I have no rear guards, and I just spray and pray and hope that I find this, and then I just have rear guards magically. It's great. So that's just pretty much what this card does. And then next we have Olivia. This is School Etel Olivia. This is pretty much just different Lupina. Her skill just says when she attacks, you can choose as many rear guards with different card names, restand them. If you restand 3 or more, she gets a crit. And ideally what you want to do is you just want to put all your force markers on rears, as if you know this is like your last card in deck or something like that, you know you're going to ride into her and you're not going to drive check her. You could pretty much go into this for late game especially. You can restand your processors and kind of go crazy. Early on, this card goes a little bit nuts, but it just kind of depends on how well you open. I would say this card like has its moments. It's free. This one's free too. This one's free. That's the reason why these grade 4s are pretty nuts. This is free and this is free. It's a free restand, and you get a crit on top of that. It's just so free. So you just have multi attacks, and it just kind of goes crazy. I will say that this card doesn't always do that much if you don't have like processors on the board, or if you don't have high beaters. If you have like low beaters and you don't have too many force markers, this card can kind of be kind of iffy, at least early on. Early on, I think this card could be whiffy. It all kind of depends on how you open. Late game, this card gets insane though, because if you have like a bunch of force markers and excels and all this other stuff, this card just goes crazy. Next we have Anesca. Now this is probably the best, early ride target you can find in your deck. If you go from Reindeer into this and you went first, you pretty much won the game. I hate to put it that way, but that's just how it is. Her effect literally just says reveal top 10. If they're all different on place, you get a force marker, an excel, and a protect. You get all 3, and on top of that, her on place gets you a force marker too. So you get 2 force markers on top of the excel, on top of the protect, on top of that. The excel will give you a draw. You get an extra circle literally on the board. Sometimes you'll actually ride this twice. It won't happen too often, but it can happen. I actually never saw this card personally even in testing. I saw it like maybe twice, but in competition, I only drew into it, so I had to just keep discarding it or setting it back. I actually never wrote this. I didn't use a single excel or protect marker at all yesterday, so just FYI. But this card is insanely strong. I did use this during shop challenge. I did take this deck to, I didn't mention this, but I did take this deck to shop challenge. I actually lost my last match. I won every single match but my last one, and for some reason I got put 7th for that. I don't really know why. I don't want to talk about it. I was a little pissed. I'm gonna be real. I only lost the person that won shop challenge, and for some reason I got placed pretty low. It is what it is. But anyway, I did see it there, and I opened up this card, and I was kind of just, it was instant game over. And then one of the other games, I opened up this card into the processors, it was game over. But anyway, never came up during BSF, but it happens. It's Highlander. Sometimes you just don't see the cards. Last but not least, now this one's a weird one. I made this change like very last minute, because originally I was building this deck towards like kind of half ride down, half like protection in case I do have to see my opponent stride. I actually built towards that, but then I made some changes again, and I kind of decided to play this card. This is Miracle Cycle Artrokaya. So if you guys don't know, I kind of built this deck around the concept of beating the mirror. because I expected to see mirrors more than I expect to see anything else. So that's got, I should have mentioned this earlier, but that's actually what I built my deck around. And this deck into mirror is this card into mirror is actually insanely good. If the game goes long game, you can actually just straight up just go into this. If it's in your hand, you can actually just raw ride it, send back 6 cards, and then you can just not deck out. This is the anti-deck out. It goes around Narukami pretty well too. And overall, this card's actually pretty nuts. I originally was kind of iffy about putting her in, but my biggest issue that I was having was I kept whiffing my top 10, and it's not that I don't have enough ride targets, I just kept whiffing my top 10. So I was like, you know what, I'll just throw out another card that can activate Reindeer's effect, right? So that's actually one of the main reasons I put her in. But then as I started playtesting more with her in it, I was actually really enjoying her. So her effect says at the end of the battle that she attacked, you can choose 3 normal units from your board and 3 normal units from your drop, 7 to the bottom of your deck in any order, restand her. Now what's really nice about her is that she doesn't lose the drive checks. So ideally what you can do is you can swing with this, go into her, swing with her, do the effect, swing with her again. So it's pretty much 4 drives, but the difference is like whatever this is, whatever your drive check on this is, it actually puts it back on her. So if you check a trigger, it goes on her, and now she's restanding with the crit. If you check OT, guess what? She's restanding with an OT. If you check any trigger, that she just gets the extra power. So surprisingly enough, this actually came up. This card came up more in BSF than I expected it to. I don't know why. I just kept seeing her in top 10, and I would have like nothing else. My option would be like this and this sometimes, but I would have like no rear guard, so I would be forced to go into this. It was very weird. I don't know how it kept happening, but I actually rode this card a lot. I faced a mirror and they went second, and I actually ended up riding this card because I actually had no other targets, and I actually won the game off of it. It was I hit OT on top of it, and she restood with 100 million and just instantly killed the person. They were pretty upset, not in a bad way. They weren't like, you know, like hissy pissy, but it was like we didn't have a game. Like like I literally just rode up to Reindeer and I just straight up won. I think I 2-6 them or 1-6 them. It was pretty nuts. It was just game over. But anyway, so yeah, this card's nuts. I will say the biggest downside to this card is that you have to neg yourself 3 on the board. So if you have a really good board and you really don't want to lose it, it is kind of unfortunate if you have to lose it. But sometimes it's okay. Like if you have like a crappy board, you can just get rid of your crappy board. And also the other thing is sometimes if you have cards that you don't want your opponent sniping, you can send them back to deck and then Q-tire them back out as well. And like I said, late game, I think this card's actually pretty nice. And there was another game I had where I had a situation where my opponent denied me having a board. Or like I couldn't Ange essentially, like there was just no point because they pretty much used their board to like get rid to make it disappear. So they didn't have a board, and my top 10 was actually this and Ange, and Ange's this card, by the way. And between this and this, Ange was doing absolutely nothing, but this was actually doing something. So I wrote into this instead, and yeah, it was pretty much GG. So the game was already pretty much GG. Like honestly, like they were gonna die either way, but this was my target, and yeah, it was pretty much game over. But anyway, so I run this card for those reasons. I will say it's kind of definitely a weird one, but it came up, and surprisingly enough, it definitely saved me some games. Like I said, I think I rolled this like 4 times, and you know, in my top 10 was just nothing but this sometimes, and I wish it was this. I never saw this card, but you know, it ended up being this, and this didn't hurt me. You'd be surprised, but triple Vanguard swing is still triple Vanguard swing. Some decks run Hanoi, obviously, and if they try to shut you down into your Heltruda turns, you can still go into this and be okay. Like you will start running out of Counterblast at some point, and if you, like I said, if you go Heltruda into Reindeer into this, it's actually not that bad. Your processors are already offline anyway, so this is useless to you, so you might as well just go into this. And to go triple Vanguard swing, what are they going to do about it, right? So it's actually pretty interesting, the weird stuff you can do. But anyway, that's the grade 4s. We do need to talk about the grade 3s, so let's go ahead and talk about those. I'm going to put these up here in case I go back into them. So first we have Ange. This is perfect performance. Ange, her effect just says counterblast on attack. If you had to hit you have to attack Vanguard, you can bounce anything that's normal units, and then if you bounce 2, you get 10k, 3 you get a force marker, and 4 you can call something from deck and pretty much call it anywhere, and you can just swing with it. So ideally what you want to do is you want to pretty much save your board with this card. This card never came up ever. It came up once, and it was very against me because I had no counterblast, I had nothing on the board. It was the most vanilla thing on the planet, and it lost me the game. It was very unfortunate, actually. I wish I saw anything else, but it just happened to be this card, and it was just doing absolutely nothing for me. But it's okay. I guess I got 10k power and like a force marker or something. But anyway, overall she's usually pretty good. Going into her is actually usually a good thing because you'll usually have a board, and if you do have a board, you know, she does a lot. But if you don't have a board, she kind of does nothing. But anyway, she does come up. You can also call like Soul Blast cards off of her effect and then be able to ride down, so she kind of still helps you with that if you have a Counterblast. But you know, she comes up. Sometimes she's not that terrible. So that's her. Next I do run the old Ange. Now I don't think I mentioned this earlier. Like I said, there's so much to talk about in here, so I'm going through like a speed machine of topics. But I will say this is definitely definitely, like, thanks to Solom, like I obviously watched his deck profile and I was like, oh, this is a really useful card. I didn't even realize I could do this. I actually had Kyrie in here, like the overdressed Kyrie in the slot, you know, just because Soul Blast bounced 2 cards, but this is ideally just better Kyrie, so I was like, okay, well, this is better, so I'll just run this. I actually didn't realize she was a Soul Blast. I'm not gonna lie, this card's like ancient as hell, and because she's so ancient, I kind of forgot that that's a Soul Blast cost. I'm not even joking. I forgot what ancient cards look like, and that's one of them, so I just kind of like went right around that one. But anyway, so yeah, so this was Kyrie, because Kyrie said Soul Blast, and I was like, ooh, that's useful for write down, I'll throw that in. And then I found out this was the thing. I was kind of iffy about her because like 11k and no force marker and all this and that, but she comes up sometimes. It's not like she doesn't always come up, but she does come up sometimes, and sometimes you can even hard ride her if you want to, and then you can just stride if you want to, and you want to do that in case you want to really, like, if your opponent's like blocking your board or something, sometimes you can just ride her or just do that. It will come up like very often. You definitely want to like go into this, but you could go into her and then go into Heltruda if you really want to just like get a board back, or you can go into her and go into OuterOrange, the stride, to then really fix your board. There's a lot of weird stuff you could do with her. She's really like just a good card. She has a lot of like good skills on her. So anyway, that's her. And yeah, she has GB2 too if you want to go for the GB2 approach. There's just a bunch of little funny stuff you can do with her, but that's her. And then next I run a Lupina. So she actually never came up. She was actually in my top 10 one time along with this card, but again, I had no Counterblast. So the same game I had no Counterblast, so I just went to Anj instead because it was just kind of the same thing. And yeah, she did nothing for me because Counterblast. But you know, it is what it is. She just restands your rear guard, so she's pretty much just a light version of Olivia. The only thing different about her is that Olivia just doesn't have a cost. If you hard ride this, it's kind of iffy. You don't really want to hard ride this, but you can just but it's not terrible. You can technically hard ride this in case you really miss this and you're playing against normal decks. It's not like the end of the world. You're just gonna have a kind of like a glass cannon turn, I guess is the best way to call it. This is a very aggro card and not a very defensive card, so just something to keep in mind. But you can see force markers, so there's that. So it's just okay. She just kind of restands your board, and yeah, and under force markers, they have to be under force markers only, so she can be okay. And next I run Tira. Tira is pretty insane. She bounces normal units on top of the fact that she synergizes with Anj very well. She restands herself. It can be a multiple Vanguard swinging thing. She's the light version of this essentially, because this is like pretty much the same thing, but it minuses you. But this has different like effects, and this one doesn't minus you as much, but it gets a little bit more power. It also restands, but you lose the drive, so it's kind of up to you how you want to interpret that. But this card does come up. You do have this. I do recommend you swing with rear guards first if you go into this card, because then you can bounce them all back. If you know this is going to be in your top 10, this is definitely I swing into rear guards first, then I swing with this. I swing with rear guards first to swing this, and then I swing with this, and then you can go Heltruda into her, and then into her, and then into her, and into her again, which is actually pretty nice. And if you put all force markers on Vanguard, it gets very lethal. If you know your opponent's playing like in a way where your rear guards matter, this is definitely a card you want to go into, because this is very Vanguard centric. That's actually another reason why I run this card, is because this is very Vanguard centric. So this is something to keep in mind. You'll notice that some of these cards are very rear guard centric and some of them are very Vanguard centric, and it's actually good to have a mix of both, because that way you can be able to kind of assess the situation. There's a lot of times where I would literally ride Reindeer and I would just like sit there, and my opponent is just like looking at me like I'm a freaking idiot or something. Like I swear, like they're just like, she's just staring. Like I'm just like staring at Reindeer, and I'm just thinking, I'm like, what is still left in my deck? What are the chances that I'll find this card? What are the chances I'll find this card? What's at the bottom of the deck? What have I drawn? What have I sent back? Like, I'm not even joking. I'm just sitting there contemplating, and I'm like, all right, Tira's in deck. That means I can swing with rear guards first. Olivia's in deck. Maybe I should swing with Vanguard first. Opponent might have a Hanui. I guess rear guards might be the play. Oh, I have this this weird clunky card in here, and my opponent is going to drop it, and I saw them drop check a Hanui. I could just go this. I was just literally sitting there thinking, what would be the best optimal solution? And I'm sorry to all the opponents that had to deal with me just like staring for like a minute. It wasn't a minute. Like I never went to time or anything like that, but it was like a solid like 30 seconds of me just like staring into the abyss, just thinking like, what is the most optimal situation to go into? So that's just what I was doing. Anyway, last but not least, there's Q-Tire, of course. Here's Q-Tire. Everybody knows Q-Tire. On place, claim a card, grab card. If you see a duplicate, it whiffs. If you don't see a duplicate, you grab it. Like that's pretty much what the card says. So you know, you can't really run duplicates too often because this card exists. This card will probably get banned soon, so just FYI, just brace yourself. It's probably going. But anyway, so this card just lets you tutor out anything in your deck. You can tutor out Aqua and then use Aqua skill to bounce this back. It's pretty nuts. This card's just really good overall in every situation. She pretty much just gets you everything you need to kind of set up. It fixes a lot of problems, and she's really good. I only run her at 1. I've always actually been an advocate of 1 Q tire. I never liked running 2. Actually, even in V premium decks, I was iffy about running more than 2. I have run more, and I actually regret, and actually part of the reason why I put this back down, why I've had this at 1, was because I played V Highlander-esque decks like Prism and Ange for so long that I found out that just running too many of these is just, first of all, they're bricks. Second off, you don't want to ride it. And third off, like, they can brick themselves. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, you can just draw into the other one, or if you find one, you'll be good. But I don't know, you'd be surprised how much this card can like go against you. So I actually just like not being too greedy, and I learned over time that it's just good to have her at 1. You'll usually find her. You have a lot of ways to find her. It's really not the end of the world. I think she's perfectly fine at 1. I actually think there's another card that is way better at more copies, and it's definitely not this card. And I'll talk about that card later. Of course, the Pearl Sister, and I guess I'll just briefly show the grade 1 Pearl Sister. These just synergize with each other. They each give each other ATK power, and they give each other a crit, and it's continuous on both sides. So pretty much if you have these on the board, these are both 28k. You have to have the different card names. You cannot have multiple copies. It has to be just these 2. Ideally, this is just a boost. These are just power buff cards. You just run them to just pretty much try and kill your opponent as fast as possible, and they do 2 damage. And you always want to kind of play the force 2 game with them. You want to kind of apply pressure to where your opponent always has to guard these as much as possible. So that's pretty much that. Back to our 2s. We also run let me go through. We also run Clasina. Clasina is just really strong. She came out pretty recently, so it was another thing that kind of made Highlander just better. On place, on Vanguard, Counterblast, Soul Blast, look at top 3, 1 to hand, 1 to bot, 1 to board. You really want to be careful with this card, what you're grabbing, what you're sending back, what you're putting to the board. I've actually been greedy with this card in testing, where I would have like a trigger, and Justine. And if you guys need to know what Justine looks like, this is Justine. And I called a Justine to board, took a trigger to hand, took a trigger to bot, and then later on I never found another Soul Blessing card, and it kind of screwed me. So just something to kind of keep in mind, to be careful what your top 3 is looking like. Don't screw yourself. Overall, this card's good. This card for me specifically, especially in competition, came up so much, and it did so much for me. I saw Betty, and then oh my god, this card like really did a lot of justice for me in BSF. Like, she like half quote-unquote carried, honestly. She's really good. Next is Miranda, or Marada. So this card came up in testing a lot, and she came up like at not at all like in actual competition, which is kind of funny. Her ability says on place, Counterblast 1, draw a card, look at top 7, ride a 2, and or you can ride nothing, obviously. But yeah. So she's just really good. She just lets you pretty much fix your grade 2 engine. So you ride her, and then you hope you find something else. 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 Ideally, these 3, we'll talk about them in a little bit, but you just want to find something else that isn't her, obviously. I run a very, very low count of grade 2, so I whiff this card like every single time. And if I don't whiff it, I'll like ride like this thing or something, or I'll just choose not to ride, or I'll ride this thing or something. It's very awkward sometimes. Sometimes I just ride for the extra soul, because this deck does go through soul really fast, and if I just lose it, I could just get it back later or something. I'll just figure it out as the game goes. But yeah, I never see this card, but it is a good card to run, and I do recommend running her. She will come up in those really niche situations, and in those niche situations she'll shine. So this is a really good card. Next, I run Lieselot. Lieselot is just a on place top card. Also, I forgot to mention this, but the grade 2s can have multiple on place abilities because of the ride down. So if you ride down with Reindeer, the on place abilities do activate. So any on place grade 2 card that's on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, you can actually utilize with the ride down effects, which is very strong, by the way. That's actually another reason why the ride down is really good, because the on place abilities do scale. Like Clasina, you can do her again. Miranda, you can do her again. Lieselot, you can do her again, as long as you didn't already do her. But anyway, Lieselot says look at top card, call it, or put into souls. This both abilities are really useful. It is a hard once per turn, and you can also just use Lieselot early on grade 1. You can just like call her out, as long as you have a 2 in hand. Don't get too greedy. Have another grade 2 in hand, but you can do her on grade 1. She does come up. If you happen to call triggers, keep in mind Heltruda can bounce them back. This is Heltruda. She can bounce them back, so you can always get triggers back to hand as long as your opponent didn't snipe them by that point, because usually early on you'll just have those triggers kind of hanging in there, and you just gotta have to hope that you can get them back. You can even like top deck into like an OT, and then you can like bounce it back later, and then you can send it back with Betty's effect or some other cards. So just funnily enough, so it's not the end of the world. So this card is actually pretty good in premium Highlander. Next, I run Syria. I actually didn't see this card at all yesterday. I forgot this card existed. But Syria says on place, discard a card like a top 3, grab 1 to hand, put 2 to the bottom. Ideally, she lets you cycle, find more cards, find Reindeer, because FYI, if you don't find this card, you kind of lose the game. You will lose the game if you don't open Reindeer fast enough, or if you don't open at least 2 to 3 copies. You definitely want to see them as much as possible, especially if you're playing against ride down decks. So you definitely want to see them. So this kind of helps you. She also becomes pretty powerful. She's 5k if your opponent's not on grade 3, and then she's 10k if your opponent is on grade 3. So she gets pretty massive. And again, this is another Vanguard Rearguard on place ability. So again, if you're writing down and you write into her, you can still use her effects. So she's pretty good. Next, Aqua. Aqua is actually very, very, very insane. Very, very, very strong deck. A very, very strong card. Some run this at 2, and I totally understand the reasoning for it. I don't, but I understand why you would want to run 2. The reason I actually don't is because her abilities are hard once per turn. So if I happen to have 2 in hand, I can't really use both of them, but it's nice in case you want to try and rewrite into another one or something. I don't know, if you want to keep cycling her in the ride down game, she's really good. She's one of the best cards to go into because she's so free, and she lets you keep bouncing cards from your board back to hand as long as they're normal units, and you can bounce back your Pro Sisters and do all this funky stuff. So it's actually pretty nice. So she's really good, very good outplace ability. Definitely want to utilize her as much as possible, especially if you don't counterblast. This does have cost Callus and Soul, so this card is the most painful in terms of cost sometimes, especially since you do need a Soul for Heltruda, so just something to keep in mind. I do run Asystica. This is a very, very important card. She lets you stun stuff, and then on top of that, she lets you send back your grade 3s and grade 4s, which you'll see a ton of. And giving access to send those back is very, very important. And on top of that, she also gets 10k. And you can cycle her, like you can bounce her and then call her back out, like, and then you can send back 2 cards if you want. If you're getting low on deck, you can actually like stack your bottom and then, you know, do your drive checks, and then you'll actually find the cards that you sent back ideally. So if you set up correctly, you can send back the correct card that you want to write into, and then write into that correct card. So it's like a little bit of a high brain stuff. It's something you have to set up for, but you can do it. So it's pretty nice. And last but not least, I do run one Eleanor. I did not actually like this card, and I actually kind of wish I put like a Sandy or something in here, because while I did build into the mirror, I wanted to like be consistent in my ride down. I also wanted to play a normal game of Vanguard where if I saw normal decks, I wanted to have a Sandy. And this card was one of the slots where I just kept kind of tossing back and forth if I wanted to keep her in or not. I ended up keeping her in, but I'm not gonna lie, she hasn't come up at testing. She didn't come up at BSF. She didn't come up at Shop Challenge. This card never came up. And the reason being is actually the Soul Blast 2. It's not the fact that I didn't see her. I just could never Soul Blast 2. The games I saw her, I opened Quasina, and if I opened Quasina, I didn't have enough soul. So funnily enough, this card almost never came up. And if I did see her, I didn't see Weaselot, so Weaselot couldn't give me soul either. So strangely enough, anytime I wanted to use her, I just literally couldn't. I was always out of soul, and so she never came up. And I kind of actually wish I did run something else in the slot. This could have been a Melty. Sandy's kind of a brick. I also do like that this is a 10k. Sandy, I believe, is a 9k if I remember correctly. But overall, she's not a bad card. The fact that she can go back on top and then you can actually find her again is actually pretty nice. For the grade 2 game, this card is actually very, very good, but you also have to have soul for her, and I'm not gonna lie, the soul doesn't come up that often. So but again, it isn't a target for your ride down effects to Soul Blast back down, so it's like a give or take. Like I said, this card, it's not bad. But anyway, you'll notice I only run A grade 2s. I think the grade 1s is where the deck really shines in order to have a grade 3 game to begin with. So my grade 1s is actually my heaviest slot, or it should be my heaviest slot. My heaviest slot actually might be my grade 3s and 4s if you include Reindeer with it, but my grade 1 slot's pretty heavy too. So I made a lot of room for, I want to have like a game, right? And if in order to have a game, I need to actually find the cards, ideally the cards that I need to play the game. So my grade 1s is kind of where all the heaviness starts happening. Let's go ahead and look at my grade 1s. So first we're gonna start with just Scene. This is another Soul Blasting card. This is actually a very, very important card. This card, ever since it came out, this has very much helped Highlander. This card is just insane. People have been talking about her ever since she dropped, so this card's really good. She also helps with Heltruda. She helps with pretty much any ride down. Anytime you have to discard, this works. And FYI, Reindeer discard, so woohoo, you can just easily just ride down. It's pretty great. So this card's insane. She also helps with Heltruda Highlander turns. If you play different Heltruda decks, you'll notice that you'll be able to replenish your board pretty easily, especially if you're playing like Anj type of decks, because Anj just has ways to call it a free board. Highlander really doesn't. You usually call 2, and then you're kind of just stuck with those 2 rear guards, and that's really it. But if you have Justine, she extends for a 3rd one, and that can really help in some games. So, and then obviously there's the grade 1 Pearl Sister, and then I run Sedna. I actually don't like grade 3 searchers. Grade 3 searchers, they usually break my, I always have a running joke about me running grade 3 searchers. Every time I take grade 3 searchers out, my deck gets more consistent. Every time I put them back in, my deck gets less consistent. But I did run this because I really need to see Reindeer. And Reindeer is just very important, so I did put her in. I kept her pretty much from the start. She was always like here, so she's very important. There's Martola. Martola comes up every now and then. She didn't come up too much in a lot of my testing, but she wasn't terrible either. I just never saw Ange, and Ange to this is like really good, and I just never saw that synergy happen, so I didn't see her too often. But she's definitely not a bad card. She also extends on Heltruda, but again, the issue is she's a soul boss, so late game you won't actually have the soul to use her. And except that Justine's also a soul boss, so again, you have to be very careful with your soul, and keep in mind Heltruda also soul boss, so you have to really prepare your soul. So if you only have one soul, you can't use these cards because you want to use Heltruda's skill, of course, because that's like priority over these cards. So just something to keep in mind. But she's not a bad card. She comes up, and sometimes she's useful, sometimes she's not, sometimes she's just 10k shield. I never use her if I have to ride her, FYI, because I don't want to give my opponent the advantage of destroying a card. I sometimes will use her late game if I can afford the Soul Blast. Roll Rock, because again, into any ride down deck, you definitely want to find this. Q-Tire can search this out as well, so this is just a very useful card. You should definitely be running at least one. Next is Yuika. Yuika is another Soul Blasting card, which also helps you ride down. This card's pretty nuts because you can pretty much bounce anything. That includes triggers, by the way, so if your Weasel off finds you random crap, you can just call it back to your hand. Also, all place abilities reactivate with her, since you're bouncing and then you're gonna recall again. You can really utilize Betty and Q-Tire and all the really good cards with her, so she's really good. Be careful, you don't want the sniped. Your opponent will definitely target the absolute living crap out of this, so make sure that you keep her safe as much as possible. Sometimes it's hard, but you should be keeping her safe. Another reason why I like running this grade 4 here, if I know my deck, if I know at some point I'm gonna start striding, I actually sometimes just send this back so my opponent just doesn't touch it in case I do need it later on. Or if I'm playing like against Narukami, I can just send this back and then find it again later on. That way my opponent can't find it, and they can't find it and drop either. And that's actually another reason why I run this card, is because this card sends back cards and drop as well, which means if Narukami tries to bind my stuff, they have nothing useful to bind because all the useful cards are put at the bottom of my deck. So just another interesting synergy that you can use with that. Next, I run Murnell. This card comes up all the time. This card loves the absolute bananas out of me. I see this card like every single game I test. I don't know why, it just happens. On place, you can reveal a normal unit from hand, play the bottom deck, and draw a card. This card saved me. There's so many times where I revealed like Ange, I sent it back, I draw a Reindeer, and I'm like, oh cool. That happened so many games where I'm like, oh, grade 4, send it back, draw a Reindeer, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool, I'm set. I actually didn't have a single game where I didn't not find Reindeer, which is really nice, and we'll talk about more about why I was able to find Reindeer pretty consistently. But of course, a lot of these cards are doing that work for you, but there's actually even more that I think kind of helps with this. But and the other effect, if she's in the back row, she gives 10k to your Vanguard when it's placed during battle phase. So that's actually pretty nice. You can just put it in the back somewhere, and then your Vanguard gets extra power. So if you want to happen to put your force marker somewhere else, you can if you have this card on the board. So that's also really nice. Steza came up a lot as well. And then battle, she boosted Vanguard. You can retire her draw card, and then Counter Blast, put a grade 3 to the bottom, and you can draw another card. You can only put grade 3s, by the way, but you can put back Hue Guardians in case you happen to use one early. You can maybe find another one again. Very useful card. It's pretty much draw 2. Just be careful if you are trying not to draw into right targets. You want to be careful when you use this. Also, Counter Blast, you want to be careful when you use this. Sometimes you do sometimes want to open Counter Blast, and in case you don't have it, be very careful with that. But overall, just a good card. She just lets you draw. This card definitely has saved me some games. I called her early. I had the Counter Blast. I shoved her. I retired her. Sent back sent back a grade 3 or something, and then was able to utilize off of that. So definitely useful. Next we have Reese's. This card actually did come up as well. She pretty much says your Vanguard just gets 10k when she's placed. That's pretty much what she does. That's really what she's used for G-guarding situations. If you do G-guard, this is like one of the greatest cards to go to. Another thing is you can actually just place her and give power somewhere else and just utilize her that way, so that in case your force marker distribution is weird, you can use this. I just want to point something out. Force markers with this deck are super weird, so you always want to put force markers on Vanguard. However, sometimes you just have the situation where you don't have Pro Sisters and all your Riggers are like awkward AKs, or they're just 10ks and they're vanillas, and your opponent has a defense, everything gets shut down. So but you want to put the force marker on Vanguard because that's where all the pressure is, right? But you're forced to put it on a rear guard circle because of how awkward it is. But now your Reindeer swing for 13, and it's a very awkward situation. This guard helps you kind of go around that sometimes, actually. So you can still put the force marker on Vanguard, call her out, put it on a rear guard. Now your rear guard's swinging, and in case your rear guard restands, guess what? It still has the 10k power that she applied. So this is pretty much like a force marker in a card because her power really doesn't matter, and that's great. The only thing you don't want to do with this card is you don't want to ride this as a 3k, and it's very awkward. And it can happen, and just try to make sure that doesn't happen. Next, I have Ratka. This card came up so much. It's kind of stupid. I went second a couple games and actually just happened to have this card, and people just don't read. I just swing and they let it happen, of course, and then I'm like, okay, draw 2 cards. Oh, I drew Reindeer. Cool. The other effect actually is on rearguard circle. You can actually pop her and look at top 2, and you'd be surprised. This card actually helped me a lot. I was able to find Hue Guardians, Reindeers, Q-Tires, Betties, all this other stuff with her. Definitely helped me in some situations where I was like slightly bricking. In case I wrote something else, I would just, and I went first, for example, I would just pop her and just be like, all right, top 2, what am I gonna find today? Very good card. She definitely came up quite a bit, and she's free as hell. It's a very free card. Now here comes the, I guess the weird part. Nobody does this. I think I might be the only person that has this. I found it over time that this was insanely powerful. I'm not really too sure why people don't run this. They run other cards instead to kind of utilize this effect, but I run 2 Betty. And the minute I made this decision, my deck got like 10 times better. So usually I ran like, I don't even remember what exactly I ran in this slot. It might have been another grade 2. I don't remember. It might have been the perfect guard. I don't know. I moved the pieces around a lot. Yeah, I couldn't tell you exactly 100% what I ran. But one day I woke up and I'm like, I don't have a card that says top 7 find Reindeer. I have 1 card, but I have a bunch of 1-ofs, so I have a very low chance of finding that. I was facing against Aqua Force, and they just have a Vanguard grade 1 that they ride that just says top 7 for Thavas. And I'm like, I want a top 7 for Thavas. I want that too. So I can't run 4. I can't run 4 of that card, so I'm never gonna say it's like Nikki or something, right? I don't have that access. So what can I do to have a top 7 for Reindeer, right? So I chose to run 2 Betty. It is a little risky, and by a little risky I mean it's like that risky, because you are increasing the chances of whiffing this, whiffing Q-Tire. In case both copies are in deck, you are increasing the chances of potentially whiffing your Highlander engine. It can happen, but the chances of it happening are so microscopic, and it's okay. It's the best way to put it. You really should run something else here just to not have the chance of that happening. However, I had 1 game out of every single game I've played, every single game I've tested, where I whiffed, and the funny part is it was actually on Reindeer's effect, but the funnier part is I actually didn't have a single right target, so I would have died anyway. So the 1 game where it did happen, it didn't really matter, and I chose to just take the risk and run 2. Now let me tell you something. I actually found both copies every single game I played, I think except 1 in the regional. And this card saved me. It saved my butt so many times. Even off of Cosina, I had it happen to where I used Cosina's effect. I found 2 Betty off of Cosina, and then I put 1 Betty to hand, 1 Betty to board, and then I sent back whatever the 3rd card was. And now I had double access to double Betty, and it was just insane. This card is so nuts. Riding this card's good, bouncing this card's good. The faster you see this card, the faster your engine rolls. You can technically have this as Q-Tire, but why run Q-Tire, which is like a brick in your hand, when you can run a 10k shield, right? If you open both of these, you can honestly open both of these and just chill. I run exactly 8 grade 2s, and like I always was able to find even grade 2s. I was able to find a Cosina. I was able to find something. This card is so absolutely nuts, on top of the fact that of course it finds Reindeer. And then the other thing is, if you happen to open Uica with it, you can just keep like spamming these. And then on top of that, if you happen to open your over trigger, which by the way I opened a lot of that one, you can just send it back to deck. And guess what? If you draw it again, just send it back to deck. And if you draw it again, just send it back to deck. Oh, you're like sitting here with all these bricks in your hand, just send them back to deck, which is a lot of what I did. I kept sending my OT, my triggers, and my pretty much my grade 4s back to deck just so I could keep, and I kept spamming this card. This spams with Aqua. This came up so much. There were so many board states I had where I just had double Betty in the back row just chilling. It's not even funny, and a lot of people were like, oh, you run double Betty. And then once I revealed that double Betty, people actually started caring about my top 10 reveals. They actually started looking because they thought that I read like other like duplicates or whatever. This is the only dupe I had, but people were like, oh no, she might run other duplicates, she could whiff it. So they actually started like looking, but I don't really care about that. But I just thought it was funny. It's just a funny little thing I noticed. But anyway, long story short, I think this is like insanely good. I actually prefer this over double Aqua or double Q-Tire. I think just opening this as soon as possible is so good. FYI, you can actually call one Betty and then top 7 find the other Betty, and then call this Betty and then find something else. So just FYI, that is something else you can do. I don't know. I think this is like actually just insane. I don't know what else to say. This card literally just does everything that you could possibly want a card to do. It's free, it searches anything, it sends back cards you don't want in your hand, it gives you back cards you do want in your hand, it finds you your win con, it just does like everything in a card. It's a top 7, yes, but it's a really strong top 7, and it'll never whiff, because if you find one, it's not going to whiff the other one anymore. So this card is just absolutely cracked. Unless you open top 7 with triggers, like this card will always do something for you, and it'll usually be useful. I will say every single time I placed this card, it came in handy. Late game it came in handy, early game it came in handy, mid game it came in handy. This card never failed me, and finding 2 copies only made my life just that much better. If I found 2 of these, I'm winning the game. Like I like the last couple of games I played, I won every single one, and I kid you not, I opened double Betty I think every single game. And like I said, one of the games I had the Cucina game where I just top 3 and it was 2 Bettys and whatever else it was, and I was like, oh sweet, let me Betty once, find something useful, send back OT, Betty twice, find Reindeer, send back another trigger, or potentially send back a grade 4. Cool, I'm set up for the rest of the game. Like, it's just great. Because something I do want to note, if you do not have an early game, you are screwed. This deck does brick, and when it bricks, it's insanely hard to come back. You do have a lot of cards to kind of get yourself back, but you have to, like, yeah, you need time. And if you face into like normal decks, like decks that just ride up anyway, you are really short on time to kind of get yourself situated and be able to fix your issues, right? Especially if you're going second. If you're going second, like you can, and you're bricking, you're in a really bad situation, and you really need to unbrick yourself as fast as possible. And it all relies on like the minute you ride your grade 1. The minute you ride your grade 1, you need to be finding ways to unbrick yourself as fast as possible if you are bricking. And if you're not bricking, hooray, yay, that's awesome. But if you are bricking, you need to quickly fix yourself. And this is one of the best cards that fixes your issues. Like this card will easily unbrick you pretty fast. Like if you can go this into Cucina and instantly find everything and you're good to go. You can go this into Aqua, find some stuff, you're good to go. You could go this into Reindeer, you're good to go. I know I'm going on a big rant about this card, but it's just crazy how much this card unbricks you. And then, like I said, early game, late game, it doesn't matter. This card will find your stuff. And I think this is the sole reason I checked my OT as much as I did. I don't think I'm going back. I don't think I can go back to 1 Betty anymore. I think any deck I play that has any Highlander in it, I'm just running 2 Bettys. It's just that strong. This card's nuts as hell. We do have a starter. This is the starter. It's just Shizuku. It could be whatever starter you want. There is that one grade 2. Some people run for the counter charger. It's an IK. It's okay. Lets you get this card back to hand, but it's all right. Anyway, in case you were playing against more like decks that want to stride or whatever, you can run this with the Shizuku package is what I like to call it. But I just run this because it's an SP. I do run the heals like this. The reason being is if I write down, this 20k shield is actually extremely useful. This came up a lot. Even just to guard with, because your hand has a lot of really strong pieces and you kind of need it. And I actually originally had 4 Hue Guardians, and then I put this card back, and then I found that this was just good. Just very useful. I do agree, Hue Guardians are like super insane. Like, don't get me wrong, these cards are nuts. Like, they're super good. You definitely want to see them. They're just insanely strong. But sometimes, especially if you write down, these are offline, and they're just 15k shield, and that 20k shield does come up sometimes, and it actually saved me a lot. Especially, it mainly saved me in testing. I didn't see it as much because I actually faced normal decks a lot throughout my runs, at least in Springfest. So because I faced a lot of normal decks, I actually just end up discarding this for an actual G guard, or discard these for actual G guards. But long story short, the 20k shield is actually pretty useful. Also, she's a different card name from this. I do run Federica, and because of Federica, I actually do like the idea of being able to not whiff. So because of that, I actually do run this for that as well. But mainly it's really there for the 20k shield, and like I said later on, you guys G-Guard. These are very, very important. If you run all 4 of these, I totally understand. I just like the block. I like to be able to block. I actually ran this deck a little defensive in terms of shield value, because if you don't have 3 cards in hand if you don't have 5 cards in hand total, pretty much for Heltruda, you kind of get screwed. So just having a raw like 20k block is just really nice over having like a 15k and like a grade 2 or something. So it does happen where sometimes you have to guard with 2 and you don't really want to guard with 2, and that's where this card comes very, very much in handy. But that's our heals. And then next we have our I'm going kind of like a weird order right here. Next we have our PGs. I run 4 PGs. I used to run the grade 1 Ines PG, and I used to have like an extra crit or draw or something like that, but now I'm running these 4. I chose to go this route because into the mirror, I wanted to find my stuff faster than my opponent did, and that's ideally actually what these were for. If we're in a bricking situation and me and my mirror are bricking, we're both playing Highlander, I want to be the first person to unbrick. So I chose to run these 4 Sentinels as my draws, and then on top of that, I actually ran a D trigger draw. That 10k shield really comes up a lot, and then on top of that, it's a draw. So I chose to run this over a critical trigger. It could be any critical, it doesn't really matter. But the reason why I did this is because you really want to see your pieces ASAP, especially into a mirror. Into a mirror, you have to outplay the mirror, and to outplay the mirror, you have to find stuff faster before they do. There's two ways to outplay the mirror. You go first and you don't brick, and you just win the game that way. Or if you guys are grade 2 gaming, you want to be the first person that finds everything you need, everything you need as soon as possible, and be able to just outshine them. Of course, your top 10 also matters, but it really just comes down to who's bricking less, and whoever's bricking less will usually win the game. So I chose to run 5 draw to just guarantee the fact that I will brick less. Also, like I said, this 10k shields just wins. So that's that. So that's the draws. And next I run a bunch of crits. So this is, I run 3 of the stride crits. This is very useful in case you go into striding. And then I run 1 of these. Sometimes it comes up, you know, Weasel will find her, and then you can use her later on Heltruda turns. She'll get you an extra card to draw that you'll then just discard. I run a vanilla crit and another vanilla crit. This is just for the Federica stuff. This is just mainly in case I need to go into Federica. Late game stuff, it does come up. So I just ran 2 little crits, and yeah, I thought this was just a cute little art, so I chose to pick her. And then this one has the Child Deck shiny one. I do have the other Child Deck shiny one, but I just really want to play this one. I don't know why. And then last but not least, the over trigger. This came up so many times, and I'm so sorry for all the opponents that had to witness this. I still feel bad for the mirror where I just rolled a grade 4 and checked OT and restood my grade 4 and then swung for 100 million essentially 2 times. It was pretty nuts, but it does happen. It is a deck that sends back OT a lot, so you have a very likelihood of checking the over trigger. It's just kind of how the deck is. Strides here, so of course we have Heltruda. I wrote 2. You could run 3 honestly, but I just run 2. Heltruda pretty much says on attack you discard 3, bounce your board, call your board. It bounces anything that includes circles, so luck cards, any weird crap that your opponent does, it goes around all that. So very good card. Definitely want to utilize her. And then at the end of the battle she attacked, you can counterblast, soul blast, and pretty much restand your Vanguard. She goes away and you restand your Vanguard. This is what you'll restand, and then you'll go into this, and then you go from this into other magical stuff. So that's pretty much what this card does. It's very strong. I'm so happy to have revealed this card and be able to use her as well, so I'm glad that she's a useful card. She's so good in like other decks too. This card's just good. I think the biggest hard thing about her is the discard 3. If you can't discard 3, you just can't use it sometimes. So just that's probably the hardest part, but otherwise this card's just kind of insane. I want to run Federica. She didn't come up. She actually came up 1 game, but I guess I'll just tell the story. She came up 1 game. It was a bugs matchup, and I actually forgot that my G-Zone stuff is offline, so I actually wrote her. And then I actually didn't whiff the top 10, but then my opponent was like, oh my god, I'm sorry, but Ghidorah's skill's online. I actually didn't realize this. I kind of forgot about Ghidorah's skill because we went into kind of like a weird late game situation where they actually strode. And I was like, oh, this is my only out. I could just ride this top 10, reveal all different cards, and then have a whole free board for free. And then it goes around all the stun and everything. And then he was like, oh yeah, that's not how that works. But he actually let me take it back, which was really sweet of him. And I actually ended up riding, which was very nice of him. It was round 2, and I actually ended up going into this instead. So it was very sweet of him that he let me do that. He really didn't have to, but he legitimately was just like, just take it back. It's okay. I still lost the game. So, I mean, like, props to him for being so sweet. But yeah, fun fact, you can't, if you're under Ghidorah, it's offline. So I actually just completely forgot that was a thing, and but I got my condition. It did go off, so I actually did see this card go off, and I was super happy about it. I think because I was so happy about it, he just let me redo the skill. So I pretty much just undid this and went into this because I actually had nothing else to go into because everything was stunned on my board, and I actually wrote a Hue Guardian because I had no choice because my board was stunned. So, well, yeah, don't be like me. But anyway, she can't come up. She's actually not too bad. I actually saw another Highlander player play this, and they whiffed it, and I was like, ooh, ooh. It was pretty painful to watch. So they whiffed it. It was very unfortunate. And anyway, next I do run this little vanilla card. This is Amoris, on place, bounce 2. It's just free, and in case you run into weird situations where you have to stride but you have nothing to stride into, you're out of counterblast, you don't have any other cards. This isn't terrible, but it's not that great either. But you know, I run to Tira. Tira's okay. Another one of those cards where she has no cost on her. You kind of can just ride her and just raw swing, and she won't do much else, but late game she's, I guess, okay. She was also okay into deck out situations. You can set back 3 cards and kind of undeck yourself out, hopefully. So she kind of comes up. I run 2 just in case. I run 1 Ange into the lock matchups, so if your opponent tries to go crazy with locking, you can just go into this counterblast 2, kind of fix it all. She does help into bugs matchups as well. I didn't have GB2 live, so I actually couldn't go into this, the game where I had the Federica person, where the person like let me undo Federica pretty much. But Yeah, she's just she's a card. She never came up, but she is useful. But she has GB2 locks, so you know, into weird Link Joker matchups is definitely good. Which is funny. My teammates saw Link Joker so much. I feel like if I was in their seats, it would have probably been better because they were kind of struggling into the Link Joker matchups. But I think I actually would have been the most ideal person on the Link Joker matchups. It kind of sucks that I never got a chance to see Link Joker because this is actually a very good card to go into that. So next I run Ball and Arena. Actually, this is kind of just like a random slot. This could be like anything, honestly, but I just chose for it to be Ball and Arena. It doesn't come up. There's actually, again, into the Bugs matchup, I actually thought about playing this card, but I had no board and they had a perfect card in hand, so I was like, damn it, I can't do anything. It kind of sucked, but it was the one matchup where I actually really wanted to ride this because I actually had the ultimate strat effect for it, and then I just couldn't go into it. And also, by the way, if you go into this, you can stride for free after that, so that's another reason I was thinking about writing this over the Amoris, and then I just chose to not do that because I had nothing on the board to recall back out. It kind of just sucks, so I was just like, whatever, I'll just let it go. Anyway, so that's Bone Arena. Going to Hue Guardians, I run Sandy. Never came up, but it's a big block. It's a big brick of shield that you could just utilize. Next, I run Leona. This is just another way to bounce and recall back cards to just get yourself some kind of shield. She's costless. This is costless as well. So because she's costless, she can be very useful. Next, I run 3 Citron. This card is definitely insane. You definitely should be running 3. You don't need 4, but you definitely need 3. Very useful card. She lets you call anything from hand to the board, and you can utilize their skills that are grade 1 or higher, so you can get Reese's out, you can get Q-Tire out, you can get Aqua out, you can get Siri out, you can get Lizelot out, you can get Motora out, you can get Betty out, you can recall all these cards back out and then just bounce them all back with the other G-Guard that I revealed. It's just insane. She just so much. You definitely want to utilize this card. Of course, if you get to the point where you can actually use G-Guards, this card comes up a lot. I do run Dismal. This is for the Uica or anything else on the board that I just don't want people touching. I just run that for this. So if you just it pretty much just says it can't be chosen, and it just goes around the weird matchups where people try to retire stuff. If you get the chance, if they're retiring battle, you can, like, you know, target stuff. If you run Hanoi, this is also really good. There's a bunch of situations where this card comes up, so she's pretty good. Or this is pretty good. Last but not least, I run 2 of the card that I revealed, which is Lucrece. Lucrece is insane. I had a game. It was a great nature player. I felt really bad because I actually faced this person in BSF. Or was it BSF? I think it was BSF, and I was playing Mystery Flare, and I like super rolled them. Like I hit like the whole nut, like the whole 10-yard package, and they were also on grade 2, and they just got obliterated into existence. And then I faced him again, but he was playing Great Nature this time, and I was playing Highlander. And actually, the first thing he said to me when we sat down was like, "Don't roll me again." And then I rolled him again. I hit 3 defenses on top of activating this card, on top of like some other stuff. I was like a 53 to 58k base. It was pretty disgusting, and they were playing Great Nature, and they had a Rhino, and the Rhino couldn't hit over, and the Rhino had like triggers on and everything, and it just literally couldn't hit over. I literally shut down their whole turn. It was very sad. But anyway, I lured into a bunch of grade 3s before they went into their Rhino turn. Their big belly Rhino turn, stride, all that other stuff, and I had a bunch of grade 3s on the board, and I was like, cool, I could just use this and up my base and hope that the Rhino doesn't hit eventually. So that's actually what I did. I just used it. But anyway, her skill just says Counterblast. You can return a normal unit to hand. If it's a 3, you pretty much get 5k on your Vanguard permanently, and then if it's a 2 or less, this card gets 15k shield. So it's a 30k shield, or you give your Vanguard 5k. So you can utilize more than one, so you can make your Vanguard be a 23k base if you want. I did have 2 grade 3s on the board, so I was able to utilize it. I actually, at some point, he swung. He was already not hitting, but I just went into this just like I got grade 3s. I could use it for stride. And then he swung another time, and I was like, wait, I want to use it again. So I used it again. It was so mean because like he literally couldn't hit, but he was just swinging to like get his card effects to go off, and I was just like, wait, I want a G guard. Oh, I want a G guard here too. I want a G guard here too. I had 3 G guards in my hand, so I was like, I kind of want to use these in case I want to ultimate strike, in case I want to do other stuff. I really want to bounce my board back, so I just kept like I kept G guarding, just like a G guard. It was pretty funny. But anyway, it was funny, but I also felt really bad because that man was like so excited to Rhino me and just destroy me and just have the greatest Great Nature turn of their life. They had like all this setup. It was beautiful, and then I just take 3 damage because I was at 2. I wanted to just go to 5, and I just went to 5, and I just it was defense, and it was very unfortunate for him because just that alone was already shut down his turn pretty much. And then I just like salted the wound by like cheat guarding on top of that. But I really wanted my board back to hand. I had to do what I had to do. But anyway, that is all the cards. That's everything. That is literally the entire deck. I'm not gonna go into like a big like, oh, here's how you here's a whole mulligan run, because this deck is one of the few decks where the deck changes so much from game to game that it's really hard to do one mulligan run. This is definitely the kind of deck where you want to test the living crap out of this. This is because the games are so unique, it's really hard to test this deck properly. You'll have a lot of games where you just won't know if your one tech is actually doing anything because you just won't see it, and then you might not even see it for 10 games or 20 games. So this is a deck where you need to test the crap out of it. I can show you Mulligan run, but it could be the worst game, it could be the best game, it could be an in-between. I don't really know. But I will say, if you are interested, you should definitely pick up the deck while you can. If you have the cards, you should definitely play it while you can, because it's probably going to get banned. So, or some part of it is probably going to go at some given point. And I know I'm bringing this up, I'm not trying to be mean. It's just this is literally one of the strongest decks in the premium format right now. It is gatekeeping a lot of decks out of the game currently. So chances are it's kind of unhealthy. So this deck will probably go away pretty soon. So have fun while you can. Enjoy it while you can. It's a very pretty, very cute little deck. So have fun with it. But like I said, test a lot. Definitely test. This is definitely a deck you should be testing. This is like Grand Blue levels of testing. If you play Grand Blue, you know. You need to test Grand Blue a lot because the Grand Blue, you need to know every matchup. This deck, you need to know everything that your card does. Every card in your deck, you need to know how it does. You need to know all the names because Q-Tire does force you to declare names, so you need to know everything that is in your deck. This is definitely like the king of do you know your deck? Because if you don't know your deck, you're gonna really plummet with this deck. You should know every single card in your deck. I know I brought this up a lot in the past, but this is definitely the deck where this really tests that level of knowledge. You should know. You should know exactly what you're playing. This is definitely one of those decks. And because I'm so used to that philosophy, it was actually really easy for me to transition into playing this deck. I feel like I played this deck pretty optimally, with the exception of I think one game where I probably could have played a little bit better. I made a misplay at some point. I was like, it was a misplay on a force marker. I put a force marker in an incorrect spot. I should have put on a rear guard, but put on Vanguard, and it actually, I think it might have costed me the game. I will say, if you're deck building, you should be looking at 3 different things. You should be looking at what are you going to do into a mirror, what are you going to see a bunch of ride down decks, and if you're not going to see a bunch of ride down decks, should you build towards strides? Those are the top 3 things you should be looking at when building this deck. I kind of went more towards the ride down engine because I was expecting to see a bunch of Highlander and I was expecting to see a bunch of maidens, and I actually saw none of that except for like the one game. Every deck I saw was a super off meta, or some, like, it was all cool. By the way, I saw a bunch of cool decks. Like a lot of decks I saw, I was like, oh, that's really cool. I didn't even know this stuff existed. And a lot of people were running a lot of D cards, like a lot of the recent set D cards, like in their decks, and it made their decks like super cool. It was actually really cool. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I was having a great time watching what people were doing and creating all these like really interesting and just really interactive decks. Like, I will say that part was cool. So just letting you know, to all the people I faced, congratulations, you guys had some really cool decks. It was a pleasure watching you guys do whatever it is your decks are doing. So of course I don't play the deck, so I don't know exactly what all the decks are doing. I literally play Grand Blue, and I pretty much only Grand Blue and Premium, so I only know Grand Blue, and everything else I just hard test into. Like, I test into the decks, I don't play the decks. But anyway, so yeah, just really awesome stuff. So other than that, like, so that's pretty much the three building deck philosophies I think you need to take when thinking about this deck in particular. If you are building towards ride down, what do you need? If you're building towards strides, what do you need? And if you're building towards mirrors, what do you need? So I think those are the best advice I can give you if you're building Highlander out. Of course, there are different lists with different types of options, but keep in mind people are building towards what they think they'll see, and based off of that, you can make an assumption. I will say, I think if I think I could have gotten away with building my deck a little bit more towards strides, and I think it would have helped me in some of my matchups better than some of the other matchups that I saw. But overall, I think I made the right choice in building it more towards the ride down decks, because if I face those, I'll just win the game. So, because that's the goal, right? Because that's what the deck does. But you live and you learn, right? And then of course you definitely want to always think about the mirror, especially with how popular this deck is. You will see the mirror. I saw it, so you'll probably see it too. And I'm not just saying that like, oh, well, I saw it, you'll see it. You'll see it. It's a very popular deck. So you need to know how to play the mirror. You need to know what to do in a mirror, and you should definitely be looking at your deck and wondering, what can I do to make the mirror match easier? So just let me keep in mind, that's the best advice I can give. That's it. I'm done. I'm done talking for an hour. Thank you all for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff. If there's anything of information, again, please sub. It helps the channel. It helps me keep going. I'm not just saying this because I'm like, yeah, I just want to say it. I'm just saying it because it just really helps. And it also shows me that you guys care what I create, and you guys see what I create and enjoy what I create, and it helps. And it just shows that what I'm doing is not just for thin air, essentially. So thank you so much for those that do, for those that watch. Also, much appreciated to everybody that saw BSF. Thank you so much for saying hello to me. I had quite a lot of people actually walk up to me and say hi and all that stuff. stuff. It was even more than I've had in the past, and I actually was very surprised by it. I wasn't expecting so many people, and I think every single round that I played, there was at least one person at the table that I played on that was like, oh my god, you're out of orange, the person that casted worlds, or oh my god, you're out of orange, the person that did this, or oh my god, you're out of orange, the person that did that. It was actually pretty wild how many people recognized me. I definitely did not have that in the past. There was a lot of teams that I faced where people either said nothing or they just didn't know who I was, which is fine, by the way. I'm not saying I want people to know who I am, but it was really nice to see just how much I've I guess how much has changed between last year's BSF and this year's BSF. I had quite a few people approach me last year or talk to me or whatever, but this year it was like that and some, and it was actually just insane just how many people like knew who I was. So it was very exciting stuff. So thank you so much for everybody that talked to me. You can always talk to me. I sometimes get a little shy, or sometimes I have trouble holding conversation, but just know that I really appreciate your time and I really have a great time talking to you. And also keep in mind there's a lot of other people that try to talk to me as well. So if I'm like jumping between people, it's just how it is. I'm one person, but I'm trying my best, and I just want to let you all know I really appreciate your time and effort, and I really appreciate you guys reaching out and talking to me. I know it's sometimes really hard to just walk up to someone and say hello, but I appreciate you all having the strength to be able to do that. I am not the most, I'm not the best at approaching people, so I'm glad you guys are just have enough balls to say hello to me. I really appreciate it. Trust me, it really means the world to me. It was definitely the highlight of my weekend. Hopping is great, you know, all that stuff is great, but there's nothing more that warms my heart than talking to the people that are part of the community that are playing the game with me. So I really appreciate it. So thank you all. And yeah, I'm gonna close it out there. So yeah, I'm gonna end it like that. Peace out, guys. That's Tanya. I'll see you guys in a future video. Bye.